You know, Easy Street's a long street, but it ends in Brantford. And if you've been following along, there is so much positive news out there about Brantford. There are 3,300 cities in our country. Brantford was named #1 place to invest in real estate. What are the odds? We're like number 86 for places to live. We have one of the lowest job rates, employment. It's insane. Things are great. So I want to invite Jacob to come up here and speak with you guys. But first, foremost, thank you so much for coming on out. And today is going to be an incredible experience, I hope. And if you have any questions about real estate, come talk to any one of the agents. Nobody knows this community better than we do. If you have any questions about finances or mortgage, talk to Jacob and his team. So, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Jacob from Synergy Mortgage.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Okay, so thanks for everyone who's showing up. There's quite a bit of you, so for some of you who may be on this side of the room, feel free to move over if you can't see things like that, because we're going to go over a lot of content on the slides, okay? So there's a lot of topics to talk about in real estate. We're not going to get too deep on everything today, but this is really just kind of what I call a straightforward path to true wealth. And we're gonna go over a lot of different topics today, okay? I'm not gonna go over the whole agenda, but we're gonna talk about real estate investing. We're gonna talk about the traditional things society, your financial advisor, everyone around you is kind of coaching you to do throughout life, and seeing kind of how that's been working out for people versus a different path, which is investing in real estate. We'll talk a little bit about Brantford, risk, you know, how do you evaluate the risk of investment, but you'll leave here with a lot of good information, and I think you'll really enjoy what you hear. So before we get started, this is a question that's going to come up throughout the presentation, okay? And it's, are you doing the most with what you have? Okay, so everyone's from different circumstance, different job, different amount of savings. Maybe you own a property, maybe you don't. It's really just about what do you currently have available to you and how can you maximize those resources to create the best possible life for yourself, okay? So this is gonna kind of come up over and over throughout the presentation. But I'll just talk a bit about my mortgage team, Synergy Mortgage Group. So we take a little bit of a different approach to mortgages than your traditional mortgage agents. We're not like waving the flag saying, hey, I have the lowest rate, come talk to me. We do have the lowest rates, but we don't really talk about that. We actually focus more on long-term wealth building with our clients. So the kind of clients we work with are typically buying 3 to 5 properties, trying to secure a more secure retirement. Maybe they're trying to put their kids through university. Maybe they're just trying to build wealth with the resources they have available to them, okay? So most of our clients, like I said, they're investors. About 75% of our clients are investing in real estate, whether they're refinancing properties to invest in real estate or they're buying rental properties. And in the last 2 years, we've closed over 700 rental mortgages because we kind of position ourselves as the experts in this type of financing. And you know, it's really rewarding to work with people and help them create a different level of wealth in their life, okay? So a bit about me, so you know who I am, why I'm kind of qualified to give you this talk. Did an undergrad in business. All I really knew when I was young was I wanted to make a lot of money. I didn't know what field I wanted to go into, so I just thought finance means you make money. So I did a finance degree at McMaster University, took about 20 different finance specific courses. And one thing that, looking back, that I find really interesting was there was no mention at all about real estate investing. So you might have heard this stat a lot, that 90% of millionaires in North America have been created through real estate. But no one's teaching us about investing in real estate in school. No one's teaching us at the bank when you're talking to a financial advisor. So I just found that really curious. So I kind of did what every single person does. I went to university, I got a degree, and I wanted to work for this one big company in Oakville. And I got a job there right out of school, started at a $40,000 salary. I didn't know if that was good or bad. It was my first job out of school, so I was super happy to take it on. So I did kind of what everybody did, was I worked really hard. So after the first 3 months probation, I remember my boss talking to me about, Noah, you're done your 3 months, and we have this really amazing, aggressive RSP matching program. It's one of the best in North America, and you should really get involved in this because future Jacob is gonna thank you for this. I was super excited. I didn't know what an RSP was. It just sounded like an adult move. So I was like, hell yeah, like let's do that, right? So I got the RSP. I worked super, super hard. After my first year, I actually had 15 different staff reporting to me. I created 2 business divisions that didn't exist in the company prior, okay? And I was expecting a big raise. I had already got a title change, but they didn't give me a raise. They said, wait till your year-end review. So at the year-end review, the HR director put a piece of paper in front of me and they offered me a salary increase from $40,000 to $41,000. And I was super pissed off. I talked to my director, I fought it, all this kind of stuff. And I had a second meeting with my HR department and said, you know what, this is the best we can do. They offered me $43,000. So I realized this definitely isn't the route for me, but maybe it's just the company, maybe it's not me. So I decided to leave the company, and I was excited to cash out on my RSP after 2 years, and I got my RSP was less than $2,500. So I was like, well, this is brutal. So I moved on. I went to a company where I got paid more money. This company actually provided me a pension, so I was working for the government, and I was super excited about that. And I had about $27,000 saved up, so I said, no, I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna try real estate investing. I heard a little bit about this. So first thing I bought was this shiny, nice looking condo. I put about 5% down, $13,000 at the time, and it lost about $125 every month. I wanted cash flow. I got shiny object syndrome. I ended up buying this. I was losing money every month. So I was living with my parents. I can afford $120 loss every month. It wasn't really a big deal. I still had a little bit of money left over, so I went back to that thought process, are you doing the most with what you have? And I put another 5% down into this property, which was a beat up old house that required a renovation. It had, 5 animals living in it prior, bad tenants, all this kind of stuff. So this property was actually cash flow positive, about $75, but at this point, I was pretty much losing money every month off my properties, and I was kind of thinking that, this was maybe not a good decision. So I went back to my career, focused really hard, and I moved to Toronto, got a better position. I started doing a master's degree full-time while I was working full-time, really skilled up in one of the most in-demand industries in North America, data analytics. And one by one, all my friends were leaving for 6-figure consulting jobs at Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, any of the big firms. Okay, and one by one I saw all of them coming to class the next week with bigger bags under their eyes, hating their life from working 80 hours a week, paying almost $3,000 a month in rent in Toronto. And I just realized, like, these guys are suckers. I'm definitely not doing that. So I got an opportunity to join a startup. I was the 4th person to join this tech startup, and it just received $500,000 in funding. And I thought this would be my ticket out. I took maybe half the salary all my classmates were making, but I figured, when we get acquired by a bigger tech company, I'm gonna be rich, or I'm gonna get a big payout, okay? So what happened was we got 2 pretty big clients. We thought we were pretty cool, and we moved to a house on the beach in St. Pete, Florida, and we were working out of a house on the beach for a couple months. And like most small businesses, we couldn't actually deliver on the product offerings we were selling to people. We started losing clients, okay? So after 8 months, the entire business failed. I didn't have a job. I was living in Toronto, I couldn't afford to stay there. So 3 years after I bought these 2 properties, I was 26 years old, unemployed, some say a loser, and moved back to Hamilton in my parents' basement. So it was a rough point for me, okay? So curious thing was I checked out on these properties about 3 years later, and this condo that I thought was a bad investment just went up $100,000 in value. This house actually went up $200,000 in value. One of my tenants moved out. I was able to re-rent it for $400 more than what it actually was renting for prior. So now this all of a sudden became a big cash flow producer and had a ton of equity to play with, okay? So this is when I had like a paradigm shift, like, oh, this real estate investing thing is really, really fruitful, okay? So at that point, I went all in on real estate, started buying properties all over Hamilton, renovating them, raising the value, refinancing, pulling capital out, and buying more property, okay? So there was 3 years after I was unemployed, living in my parents' basement, is now today. I'm 29 years old. My portfolio is valued just about $5 million. It's 10 properties, about 25 units, mainly in Hamilton, so city just down the road. I'm a mortgage agent and partner with Synergy Mortgage Group. Just got a vacation property in Florida. Been featured on tons of different blogs, podcasts, Coach Go TV. I'm a writer, contributor on Realtor.ca. And what I'm most proud of by far is no longer live in my parents' basement, okay? So that's where I am right now. So before we get into all the financials and things like that, I have to actually put this disclaimer out there because I'm giving a lot of financial advice. So even though I'm giving advice, know that this is not my advice, okay? So advice, opinions, they're like armpits, everybody has them, and most of them stink. That's kind of the whole premise there, okay? So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about 3 specific things. So different investment options that are available to you, why one may be better than the alternatives, and how this knowledge can accelerate you towards true wealth, okay? So true wealth is different from wealth. I'm going to explain that a little bit later, okay, in the talk. Now, why are all of you here? Probably different reasons. Okay, why would you be giving up time on a Thursday night? Thursday night football's on tonight. I know I'll probably be watching that after this. You know, but you know, you are taking away time from maybe your loved one, friends, family, what have you, right? So you're probably here for one of three reasons, and these are the questions that we answer with most of our clients on their individual consultations. And it's, some people want to learn how they can pay off their mortgage in 10 years. Some people want to learn how some of their other clients are putting their kids through university without it being a financial strain on their household, on their cash flow, without foregoing vacations, things like that, okay? Or maybe you just want to learn how to build some extra wealth for retirement. Now, one question keeps coming up. Now it's like a little bit recent, but this one has been asked by a lot of people, and they want to learn how to help their kids own property in the future, okay? So property ownership, it's always kind of been a symbol of the middle class, okay? But if property prices continue to trend the way they're trending right now, the reality is if you want to get your kids into the middle class, you may need to help them, okay? So a lot of people want to learn how they can maybe set their kids up to buy a house in the future, maybe if it's 20 years from now, like this little one right here, okay? So I'm gonna ask you kind of like a hypothetical situation. Let's say Josh, who's just up here, decided to be really generous, and he just dropped $100,000 in your bank account. And you can't spend it on anything practical. You can't buy an investment property, can't invest it, nothing like that. Just think about what you would do with that $100,000. Just something frivolous, fun, what you'd spend it on, okay? So you're probably in one of these two categories. You would choose something to buy, like a physical item, or you would choose an experience, okay? But right now for the exercise, I want you to just think about something to buy, not an experience, okay? Thought of it? Anybody? Okay, good. Now, let's just say Josh got really, really generous. He gave you another $100,000, and now you have to spend that on an experience. So think about what you might choose as your experience, okay? So let's say one of those checks bounced, and you could only pick an item to buy or an experience. So hands up if you choose something to buy. Okay. And hands up if you choose something to experience. Okay. So anyone who chose something to buy, anyone choose a car? Yeah? What kind of car did you choose? I won't put you on the spot. We'll say a car. Okay. So this gentleman, you know, he said he'd buy a car, right? So imagine that you're not thinking about parking that car in your garage and not using it and letting it sit there, right? You probably bought that car because you want it for the experience, right? You want to drive around with your friends in it, your loved ones, whoever. That's probably the reason that you want the car, right? So really what it comes down to is we all want this, right? We all want experience, whether it's maybe it's a nice suit that makes you feel a certain way. You want that experience, okay? But the reality is you need money sometimes to get that experience, right? We all want to live a good life, and like money certainly helps get us there, okay? So this word wealth, sometimes it's a bit of a dirty word. So the state of being rich or material prosperity. So normally, you know, we don't want to be rich, we want to have a fulfilling life. But you know, like I said, having money definitely helps, right? And I think we all know rich people or very wealthy people who aren't very happy, okay? So I think one of the reasons these really wealthy people maybe aren't that happy is, you know, they've worked so hard in their life, they've amassed all this wealth, and they don't want to spend any of the money. Okay, I know my parents are like this. They don't want to spend any of the money type of thing. And a lot of the reason people don't want to spend the money is because they're afraid they're going to run out of money in retirement, right? There's a scarcity associated with that money. So even though you've worked so long, you actually don't have the ability to spend it. You're afraid to lose it essentially. So for me, true wealth is an abundance of possessions and money, but more importantly, the ability to use that money in your time on your terms without concern or fear. Okay, it's being able to spend money without being afraid you're going to lose money, okay? That to me is really important. Now, right now, what we do typically when we do have wealth is we walk it into a financial institution, we talk to a financial advisor, and we hope that they have our best interests at hand, and they're going to invest our money better than we would. So do you guys think that someone else is going to look after your money better than you will? Yes? No? No? Yeah, probably not, right? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about financial advisors, and I know a lot of great financial advisors and things like that, but the thing we have to realize is Financial advisors are financial salespeople. We call them advisors. We think they're giving us plans and things like that, but they're selling financial products, okay? So there's life insurance, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, okay? That's what they're trained to do, trained to sell those products. But one thing too is, for example, like my best friend is a financial advisor. I respect him a lot. He's one of the most hardworking people I know. He just bought his 3rd investment property in Brantford. Okay, like earlier this week, I had a guy from London, England reach out to me. He's from Toronto originally and wants to invest in Hamilton, okay? He found me online. He said, hey, can I partner with you on an investment property in Hamilton? He's working for a big London investment firm. Okay, even the financial advisors are putting their own money into real estate, okay? So let's talk about your business, how you're gonna handle kind of your own money, all right? So if you can go back 10 years, would you have some financial advice for yourself? Would you tell yourself to do a couple things differently? Yeah, I would, for sure. I probably would have avoided a big start to my life that I was talking about a little bit earlier. But the thing is, like, obviously you can't go back in time, right? But you can make decisions today that are going to impact the next 10 years of your life, right? So this is what this is about, is teaching you some decisions you can make today so that your next 10 years are significantly different. Make those decisions and change things up, you might end up like this. So this is it's a joke, but it's kind of true. So this is the traditional Canadian retirement plan, okay? Lotto Max, 649, a cash for life, scratch card ticket, and 2 roll up the rims, all right? If anyone's ever worked in a mall, I've worked a few mall jobs, you see this every single Sunday morning, okay? There's tons of them sitting in the food court, scratch tickets, coffees, that's what a lot of people are doing, okay? So if you ask a lot of people, 10 people, let's say, what's your retirement plan? 4 to 10 might joke around and say this is their retirement plan, but they probably actually don't have a plan, okay? And that's why they're joking around. So you don't want to end up in that position. So let's talk about the way we're told is the safest way to invest your money. Okay, so you want to take it to the bank, maybe you want to throw it in an investment savings account or a GIC. So does anyone have any idea of what like a savings account interest rate is?
Like a 1/4%.
Yeah, less than 2%, let's say 1% just to be generous, okay? Yeah, so let's say you had $10,000, you invested it at the end of 1 year, your $10,000 worth $10,100. Congratulations. All right, so can't really do much with that, but if you actually look a little bit deeper, it gets even worse, okay? So that interest is taxed at a marginal tax rate, whatever your tax rate is. Let's say it's 30%. Now all of a sudden, your $100 gross profit, which you're already disappointed with, is actually a $70 gross profit, okay? Now let's go even further. So your 0.7% return that you're getting is actually fighting against this thing called inflation, because the loaf of bread you bought last year for $3 now costs $3.09, okay? So you're going ahead 0.7%, but then you're getting kicked back 3%, so you're actually losing 2.3% every year you put money in a savings account, okay? So your buying power is decreasing, but even if the interest rate was better, 4%, something like that, the issue is that you're getting income, but you're getting zero growth. So you have an interest rate return, but this asset itself, the $10,000, is not growing. Okay, that's the main issue, and I'll explain that a little bit further later. But if there's anything I know about investing, it's that we have to control assets that both grow and produce income. So we want that consistent income, but we also want the investment to grow, okay? And we have to look to expand and control more than what we currently have. So if you have, let's say we're talking about real estate, 1 property, you should be trying to buy more property so you have more safety, more growth, things like that, okay? So if there's any slide I want you guys to really, really pay attention to, it's this one, okay? This one was like, really spoke to me, so it's really important. So let's say, for example, you have $100,000, you walk to your bank and you say, you know what, I want to invest this $100,000. What are my options? Okay, typically you can invest in 3 different things: a business, shares, stocks, what have you, or property. There's other types of investments, but everything's pretty much like a derivative of these 3 things, okay? So if you go to your bank and you say, no, I want to buy this business, I have $100,000, how much would you lend me? Okay, anyone have an idea of how much the bank might lend you? It's pretty much zero. It's almost always zero unless it's a really, really profitable business opportunity. Let's say we're being generous and the bank would match your $100,000, then you have the ability to buy a business that's worth $200,000. So if you buy a business that's worth $200,000, do you think that that business is a business you can park a 16-year-old and he can run it himself? Or do you think you buy yourself a job? maybe, right? And if anyone's self-employed here, you probably know that it's not 9 to 5, it's 9 to 9, it's weekends, it's all that kind of stuff, okay? So second option is you can put 100, you can say, you know what, bank manager, can you bring me your #1 financial advisor in the whole institution, and I want to invest $100,000 with them. How much would you match or contribute for me to invest with your personal best financial advisor? Answer is probably going to be $0, but if you're in maybe one of these high net worth programs, they might actually match that, okay? And then you can buy up to $2,000 worth of stock. Now you can also go to this same bank and you can say, I have $100,000, I think I want to buy a property. Don't know if it's a townhouse, condo, duplex. I don't know if it's going to be in Toronto, Brantford, Woodstock, but I think I want to buy property. How much would you lend me? As long as you can qualify, they'll lend you $400,000, okay? 4 times the amount. So what does that tell you right here? So to me, it says that property is 4 times safer than buying a business or investing in the stock market, or investing in the stock market is 4 times riskier than buying real estate. And I'm not saying that. That's what the bank is saying with their actions. Their actions are telling the story. So you should get a little angry at your institution when they're saying, come here, bring us your money, you're richer than you think, and invest it in this area, when they're taking all their money and they're investing it in property, okay? So let's say our goal is to make $100,000 in 5 years. Okay, let's go through all the different approaches. You would need a 50% return on your business in order to make $100,000 on your $200,000 business, or you would need a 10% return compounded every single year for 4 years. If you're doing stocks, you would need a 50% return, or 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 5 straight years. So does anyone's stock portfolio get 10% every single year consistently? Mine doesn't, so if yours does, let me know, because I have some locked-in funds I have to do something with. So now with the property, you just need a 20% return or a 4% return each year. So anyone here who owns property, have you ever gotten a 4% return on your property in a year? Appreciation, yeah, most people. Yeah, more than that. A lot of people have gotten more than that before, okay? So do you want to learn how you can make a 25% return on your property investment? If you don't say yeah, I'm not going to switch the slides. Yeah? Okay. So it's really simple. Let's say we're buying an investment property for $500,000. You invest your $100,000 in the down payment. The bank lends you $400,000. So that's not your money. They're lending it to you. Okay? And if that property increases 5% in value, your $500,000 property is now worth $525,000. So $25,000 increase in value, that's 25% of your original $100,000 investment. Okay? This is why real estate's so powerful. It's the leveraging. Okay? Now, if you're like me and you put a tenant in that property, they're paying your mortgage every month. On this type of mortgage, you will have potentially paid down $10,000 against your mortgage that year as well. So in this situation, it's actually a 35% return on your investment in 1 year. Okay? This is why real estate's so powerful. This is why all the millionaires are coming through real estate. So what about risk? So some people say, well, I'd rather put, $100,000 in the stock market than be vulnerable with $500,000 in the real estate market, right? So one thing I know about risk is risk does not equal debt owed. How much debt you have does not determine how risky your investment is, okay? Risk is a function of 3 things: demand, control, and exit strategies. So what is the demand for your asset, your stock? What control do you have over, and what are your exit strategies? So a few years ago, there was the biggest vehicle manufacturer in North America. If people own stock in that vehicle manufacturer, I don't want to say their name, but you probably know who I'm talking about. That stock was considered a blue chip stock, a really, really good producing stock, okay? So it turned out that that particular vehicle manufacturer was lying about their emissions and talking about it in their marketing of their vehicles. So what happened was, this came out, the company went under a huge lawsuit, and the company lost $20 billion in value over the course of 2 days. Okay, so when a company loses that much value, do you think there's much demand for that stock that you had $20,000 invested in? No. Control, well, you don't work for the company. You have no impact on what happens with that company, so you essentially have no control. In terms of exit strategy, your only exit strategy if you owned that particular vehicle manufacturer stock would be sell and lose, or keep for like another 30 years and maybe gift it to your grandkids, okay? Or something like that. So now let's say you bought a crummy property, pretty beat up on a good street. Do you think that you have the ability with your own two hands to do something to affect the demand of that property? Right, of course. So you can paint the house, change the kitchen, put in a bath, fix it up. You can control the value of that property, okay? Let's talk exit strategies in real estate. So you can sell the house, you can rent it, you can improve it like we were just talking about through renovation and then rent it for a higher price or sell it for a higher price. You can change its use. Maybe it's a single family right now, but it's better used as a duplex or a multi-unit property. You can rent to own it, find a tenant who's gonna pay you a lot of money to rent every month under the agreement that they can buy it in a couple of years, or you can do what I do. I increase the value of the property, I appraise it at a higher value, refinance, get my money out, and then go buy more, okay? So a lot of different exits, a lot of different ways you can pump up the value of your property. So that identifies kind of the lack of risk, okay? So really quick, RAIN Real Estate Investment Network puts out this graph about long-term real estate success formula. It's really straightforward. It talks about population growth in a city, how it leads to increased rental demand, decreased vacancies, and increased rent price, right? So is that happening in Brantford right now? Yeah, you probably have friends who are complaining about the rent costs. They're jumping right up, right? Or maybe yourself, you're looking for a place to rent or what have you, right? So what happens is rent goes up, there's not many vacancies, people just look to buy property. When they're looking to buy property, prices go up as well. Okay, that's what's happening in Brantford right now specifically. So talked about this. Vacancy, it's about 1.2% according to CMHC. Huge thing Brantford has going for it, it's affordability. Okay, so coming from outside of Brantford, Hamilton, things like that, everyone in my city is saying, oh man, Brantford's so affordable. Right? So people in Brantford might be saying, oh man, prices are going up. People in Hamilton, Oakville, Mississauga, they're all saying, wow, Brantford's so cheap. Right? Young kid can get in the market here. So prices have a lot of room to go up for that. It was voted #1 city, like Josh mentioned, to find work in Canada by Huffington Post. There's many different big manufacturing companies here in Brantford as well. Okay? So here's just a list of a bunch of different economic fundamentals. I'm not going to go through all of them, okay, long list here, but one key one is this area in the RBC Affordability Index hot zone, meaning rent costs are between 25 and 39% of average income, and that's one of the metrics that Brantford's doing really, really well in right now, okay? And that's one of the best metrics for rental demand. Some more things here, just a thing to think about too when you're looking at investments, okay? So, is there a noted increase in labor and material costs? Okay, so a lot of the cities, you'll see a lot of new build developments, okay? And those new build developments, let's just use Brantford, let's just say hypothetically, I don't know what the rental figures are, you can buy a new build at $400,000 and it rents for $1,800 a month or what have you. A lot of times in these cities, there are existing properties that are not new builds that you can buy for $100,000 or $150,000 less and just get a couple $100 less in rent, okay? These are huge, huge value opportunities, okay? Specifically in cities like Brantford. So Josh kind of ruined this for me, but there's a money called Money Sense magazine and they rank the best investment cities in Canada every year. So he mentioned it earlier, Brantford was the #1 city in Canada in 2018. They just released the 2019 list. Brantford ranked #3 in 2019, okay? So still up there, so I guess that tells you it's probably a good place to invest. Now, what kind of properties are people buying for people who are like a little bit new to real estate investing? Well, they're buying things that cash flow, meaning they make money every month after the expenses, somewhere between 5 and 10%. Not everybody, but that's what a lot of people are looking for. So let's say you're buying a property at $350,000, your mortgage payment around $1,110, property tax insurance is about $1,430 a month all in. So how you calculate the cap rate is based on a 10% cap rate, meaning their yearly rental income is 10% of the purchase price. You'd be making a lot of money per month because your income would be $2,916 and your expenses would be $1,430. Now those are pretty hard to find, right? But even if you're at a lower cap rate here and you're breaking even, making $1,458 against your $1,430 expenses, the value in property is really in the compound effect. Okay, so we have some clients that we work with where they literally don't care if the property cash flows. Obviously you have to have excess funds to be able to do that, right? But they're in it for the compound effect, okay, which I'll show you kind of a little bit further on this slide. So let's say we bought an investment property for $350,000. At the end of 1 year, we got a 5% price appreciation, which in Brantford is, some people are saying it's too low for the slides, but let's say 5%. At the end of that year, that property just increased $17,500 in value. So think about how much overtime you have to do this year in order to generate an additional $17,000 in income, okay? So at the end of the year, your property's worth $367,000, and then at the end of the 5 years, the property value has gone from $350 to $446. Do we think that's reasonable? Do you think a property that you buy today at $350 could be worth $446 in 5 years? Yeah? Head nods? Okay, good. So yeah, I'm not preaching anything like too crazy. So we see here a value increase is about $96,000, but there's also another value here, and that's the tenant paying down the mortgage. Over 5 years, you would have about $36,000 paid off on that mortgage. So meaning your value increase alone is worth is $132,000 in 5 years. Okay, so if you sold the property, there'd be realtor fees, tax on capital gains, things like that, but we'll address that a little bit later. Okay, so here's our return of $132,000. That doesn't include our original down payment that went in. You would get that back as well. Okay, but if you extrapolate those metrics over the next 30 years, the returns get pretty crazy. So in 30 years, your value increase could be $1.5 million. Now, that number looks crazy. Like to me, when I put these on paper, I was like, holy, like no one's ever gonna believe that, you know, a property worth $350 could be worth $1.5 million in 30 years from now, okay? But if you look at the properties worth $350 today, and you look back 30 years, they were selling for $60,000 to $70,000, which is about 4 to 5 times what they sell for today. So this is just repeating history if this was to happen type of thing, okay? So the actual returns is, in this situation in 5 years, is 190% return on your money or 24% annual compounded. So I know no one's getting that on their portfolio returns, okay? Extrapolate that over, let's say, for example, 20 years, it's about 1,100% return on your money. The numbers get pretty crazy, but that's just an idea, and I'll come back to this a bit later, okay? But real estate investment is just really simple. It's like planting a tree. If you just take care of the property, it will be very fruitful for you. So here's an example of if you just had one of these $350,000 rental properties, in 20 years, your value increase would be around $770,000. Now, most of our clients get 2 or 3 properties. Okay, so imagine if you get 2 or 3 of these, what it looks like in 20 years from now for your life. Okay, in this case, let's say 2.1 million, but even if you're not at that number, even if those appreciation increases don't come, even if you're at half of that or 2/3 of that, you're still in a really, really good position comparatively to a lot of other investments. Okay, we have some clients who get to this stage, 10 rental properties, quite a bit. Okay, and then so imagine they have this $770,000 price increase across 10 properties, and in 20 years the rents have gone up significantly too. So they're getting $4,000 a month across all these properties. So imagine having a portfolio like this in retirement. It's worth $7.7 million. It brings in $40,000 a month in income. So like I mentioned, you don't need to have 10 properties. You could have 1/3 of this, and you're in a really, really good position. Okay. Actually, taking back to this guy here, this was actually, we had a client, he was a client of another broker we work with, and this gentleman actually was in this position, and he wanted to take his family away to Hawaii on a family reunion. But everybody in the family was in different financial circumstances. Some were students, some were a little bit strained financially, and what he actually did was he chopped down one of these trees, he sold a property, and he took his whole family to Hawaii. This actually happened, okay? So you think that guy is living on his terms without fear, like that definition of true wealth we talked about, okay? And the crazy thing too is that he sold one property and he loses that $770,000, but at the same time, because he has 10 properties, and if the market appreciates 5%, he'll replenish that loss within 2 years, okay, based on the math. Now, this is one of the biggest flaws in financial planning. I heard this a bunch of times. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But it's when you're young, you're supposed to go in a riskier portfolio with growth. When you're middle-aged with kids, you should go in a more balanced portfolio. Then when you get old in retirement, you're supposed to sell everything, put it into annuity or an income fund, and get income every month. So basically, when you get to the age of retirement, they're taking growth out of your portfolio. Okay, so it's okay to own growth assets in retirement. I don't understand why that's something that they're taking away. When people are in a position in life when they can no longer produce income or they're no longer working, they're taking growth out of the portfolios. So let's look at this example specifically as well. This guy's bringing in, let's say, $4,000 a month across all these properties. You think if this person had a mortgage against every single one of these properties, that was a mortgage payment of $1,000 each, let's say, that would be an issue for them when they're bringing in this much rental across all these properties? Like, definitely not, right? So it's totally okay to own growth assets in retirement, okay? So where do we actually start? How do we actually start doing this? This is where most people start. They start with either savings or equity. Your house might be worth something like this, $400,000. You might have a $200,000 remaining mortgage on it. What that means is you have equity in the property. So if your house is worth $400,000, that means you can borrow 80% against the value if you qualify, in this case $320,000. And if we deduct the existing mortgage of $200,000, you're left with about $120,000, okay? So here's our source of down payment to go put on this $70,000 property, okay? Or sorry, this $350,000 property that requires a $70,000 down payment, okay? So we talked about these questions earlier in the presentation, so we're going to start with the first one to learn how some clients are paying off their mortgage in 10 years. So it's pretty counterintuitive, okay? So you're going in more debt to pay off your debt, okay? You're using rental properties to pay off your primary residence. So in this case, this property that we just refinanced took $70,000 out of. We invest in a rental property, and then in 10 years, the value increase of that rental property projects to be around $299,000. So if you sell that property, pay tax on the capital gains, pay the realtor fees, you're still gonna be left with over $200,000, which is enough to wipe out, that $130,000, right? Because you're getting your down payment back still, so we can allocate that back towards the mortgage. So this is how some people who are on track to pay off their mortgage in 20 years can pay it off in 10 years just by reallocating some of that money into an investment property, okay? For the next one, about putting their kids through university. So I'm not sure, anybody here have kids? Hands up. Okay, oh, a lot of people, cool. Okay, so not sure if you've ever got one of these before. It's an RESP, Registered Education Savings Plan. Okay, government encourages people to get these for their kids to help pay for their education. The way it works is you can contribute up to $200 per month per child, okay? And at the end of the year, the government will match you $500 of that, okay? So generally what you end up with after 20 years is $48,500, okay? But let's just anticipate some growth and be really generous and say you ended up with somewhere between 80 and 100,000 in this RESP, which I've never seen a result this high, but it's possible, okay? What some of our clients are doing are they're simply just, you need the capital to do this. So you can't do this if you don't have money. Obviously you need a down payment, but if you just buy one investment property in 20 years, the projected value increase here, let's say 770,000 versus 50 to 100,000 at best. Like, it's a no-brainer that if you have the ability to buy investment properties and you have a young child, that this is going to be the trigger that helps pay for their education a lot more than one of these RESPs. And if you think about it as well as you're putting away money, let's say you have a couple kids, that means that you probably have additional cash flow that you can be putting towards a property even if it was a negative cash flow, right? Which we're not saying buy those kind of properties, but just food for thought, okay? So the final one is just learn how some clients are building extra wealth for retirement. So again, according to this chart, if you're under the age of 30 like me, maybe you can just buy one property and you're gonna be okay, right, with these projections. One property might be enough for you, but not everybody has 30 years to wait till retirement. So what we recommend for some of our older clients who wanna cash out a little sooner is you simply just look at this scale here for 10 years, and instead of buying one property, you try to buy 2 or 3 at this range, and you cash out on all 2 or 3 in 10 years, okay? I just had an investment partner partner with me on an investment. He's 62 years old, just bought an investment property. You're not too old to get these growth assets. If you cash out in 10 years and take a nice check, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So just food for thought. So quick summary of kind of what we learned today. True wealth, okay? It's not saving up your money and being afraid to use it, but also having these growth assets that are producing rent checks every single month for you, okay? And being able to live kind of on your own terms. Talk a little bit about savings, how much money you're actually left with when you're saving your money at the bank. Finally, the shares business property slide, okay? Remember it told us the bank's actions are telling us that they're investing their money in real estate. They think real estate's the least risky proposition of all the different investment types. And then finally, just how you can use all this information to pay off your home, pay for your kids' education, and fund your retirement. So come back to that question we talked about earlier. You know, are you doing the most with what you have? Do you have the ability to invest in real estate, to do some of the things that might put you in a better position in 10 years? If you do, I hope that you guys take action. So here's some of the things you might be doing right now that you might be able to reposition for a much bigger return. So next steps, we do these wealth building plans with clients. So feel free to fill out one of these sheets at the front if you haven't already. Sign up for an appointment time. We'll reach out to you and set up a call just to go over your personal plan and see how we can get you into an investment property as soon as possible. You can email me directly here. I'll just leave this slide up for a little bit. And maybe we can set up an appointment time. I booked off my whole day tomorrow specifically for people at this seminar. So I'm going to be available tomorrow for everybody from this seminar over all my other clients because you guys took a time out to come out here tonight. So I'll be available. You can even go to our website, Synergy Mortgage Group, and get started with an application right away. It's another option. Or you can even just follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I post a lot of investment content there as well. So that's it, guys. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so before everybody runs off, you taking questions?
Sure, yeah, if anyone has any.
Anybody got it? All right?
Yeah.
Leanne?
So I brought a 17 and a 15-year-old with me with my kids. But when you're talking about multiple properties, I guess the key question would be, how do people qualify for,
Yep.
I mean, people in Brantford live, well, but again,
How do you qualify? So there's two pieces, right? There's how do you come up with the down payment for all those properties, and then how do you qualify based on income for all those properties, right? So if we're talking about income, there's certain ratios that you can hit where a property that you own does not impact your borrowing power, okay? So we can say, okay, this is how much rental income you need for this size mortgage payment in order for that property to not impact your borrowing power whatsoever. So we can teach you the numbers so you can make your purchase decisions based on that. Okay, and then down payments, you can get that through raising the value of your property, refinances, things like we talked about.
Do you do REITs or anything like that, where it's a group purchasing power?
No, all just individual borrowing power, or what some people do too is they partner up with people who have the borrowing power, and that might be a good partnership for somebody who maybe they're interested but they don't want to do the work, and then maybe there's a good synergy there.
We're in kind of like pretty low interest rates now. So have you worked out in your head like a line where it's time to be a little more cautious? Like at 11%,
yep.
Numbers work a little differently.
Of course.
And all that.
Yep.
And when I was a kid, my mom was paying me 16%. And so is that? I mean,
sure.
It's been a long time like this.
Yep.
But there's probably not going to be forever.
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces to that, right? So the more cash flow you have in your investment, the more buffer you have for potential interest rate hikes, right? Same time, if you buy a property with a 5-year fixed rate, you're keeping that rate for 5 years. So maybe it's time to exit in 5 years, or you reassess at that point, right? So yeah, I think the way you have less risk is we talked about those 3 things: demand, all this kind of stuff. So if you have a property that's high end, so you're always going to find a tenant. You're in a city like Brantford where there's 100,000 people moving to Toronto every year, and all that traffic of people is getting just jammed down through to cities like Brantford. That's a good thing. And then the more cash flow you have, the safer your investment is, because even if it plummets in value, you can just hang on to it in cash checks essentially the whole time. Is that good?
Yeah.
Any more questions? All right,
yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, what have you done off your personal portfolio to reduce litigation risk and tax risk?
Yeah, so basically all my properties are bought, they're all residential 4 units or less, so they're actually all bought in personal names, okay? Buying in a corporation or something like that, not really concerned about that from like a being sued perspective or something like that. You know, you obviously properly insure all your properties. If you have to pay more for all the insurance coverages, that's how you protect yourself from that standpoint. And just, you know, make sure your properties are safe. But I think from a taxation standpoint, you know, you pay the taxes that you're supposed to pay, right? I don't hide anything, things like that. Last thing you want is to get audited or things like that. So yeah, there's gonna be years where maybe you pay a little bit more if your income's very high that year. You know, you can write off certain things, but you just kind of follow the rules and, you know, get what you get. The returns far outweigh having to pay a little bit extra tax at the end of the year, kind of thing.
More questions?
Nope.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
For them.
Oh.
All right. Who learned something new today? Fantastic. Was it worth the price of admission? Yeah. Fantastic as well. Okay, so one of the tasks that all of the agents on the crew were given was to compile a list of potential investment properties here in Brantford. So if you guys want to talk to anybody on our team about that, we can provide you with that list. Another question though I want to ask you guys, anybody here currently renting or is looking to rent? Okay, so we do a lot of rentals. We just put a property up for rent for a client. Within 24 hours, we had nearly 48 applications. Most of the applications come in sight unseen. That's how many people in this community want to rent right now. There has never been a better time to buy an investment property. The only better time was yesterday. Okay? So, no rush. If you guys want to talk about real estate, all of the agents are here. We'd love to have a conversation. It's completely no commitment. We just want to talk. We love talking about real estate. You want to talk about mortgages and finances and investment properties, talk to these guys right here. The last thing I'm going to leave you with. Many of you have bought something that wasn't for sale. Bear in mind that every house is for sale. And one thing that our team specializes in is off-market listings. Okay, so if you're looking for something, you've been looking, you can't find it on the market, talk to one of our agents. Every one of us knows somebody who wants to sell something, who'd sell it to you for the right price. All you've got to do is ask. So thank you so much for coming out to our Easy Street Real Estate Investment Seminar. We're going to be doing more stuff like this. Tell your friends, come on back. You don't have to run out here. There's lots of Timbits, coffee, hot chocolate. Thanks. And ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Jacob.